Well, welcome everyone to this presentation. We're going to be talking making the most of Microsoft Teams. This is an overview. So we're going to talk about some of the basics of Microsoft Teams, and then we're going to talk about some best practices as well. We got a bunch of folks here in the live broadcast. So I'm super excited to see everybody here, and welcome and thank you so much for joining. If you're catching this on the replay, thank you for finding us, and hopefully you'll find some helpful, useful things in this video. Of course, this is a presentation that's a part of the Global EdTech Academy that you can find at q.org/Microsoft. And we've been at this for several months now, and there are a ton of really good, there's a whole bunch of really good sessions that are coming up, but also a whole bunch of them that have happened. So if you haven't had a chance to get over here, by the way, q.org, just like this, cue.org/Microsoft is the place to go. If you're watching this live, this is probably how you got here. Let's just be honest about it. But whenever you get here, you have the schedule button that you can click on where you can find all of the upcoming sessions, scroll down through it. You can even sort by speaker and sort by topic and the type of presentation, which is pretty cool. But then you've also got this session videos button, and they've been loading all of these recordings from all these presentations into this YouTube playlist. And so now there are dozens and dozens of these videos that you can go check out. Looks like as of this recording, we have 115 videos in this. So really, if there's something that you're interested in checking out, you might just scroll down through here and see if it's if it's already up, and then you can just watch it on demand, So again, q.org/Microsoft is the place to go for the Global EdTech Academy. So with that in mind, I wanted to kind of jump into Teams just a little bit. I have found, after having worked with Teams for just a little bit now, I found that it is a really nice blend of a lot of things all in one place. I think that Teams is it's kind of like your go-to spot if especially if your students or your staff or whoever has Microsoft accounts. It's kind of like your online hub. This is the place where all of the activity happens. And so you want to be able to post something for everybody to see it. If you want to start a video meeting, if you want to share resources, if you want to communicate in real time, you can do all of that stuff on Microsoft Teams. So again, like I was mentioning earlier, for those of you that are live in the recording, if there are specific questions that you have or specific things that you'd like us to cover when it comes to Microsoft Teams, then please do definitely drop that into the chat. I'm going to keep an eye on the chat, as well as the presentation resources you'll see that I'm sharing on my screen. So I thought a good place for us to start would be this. So over on my blog, Ditch That Textbook, I have written what you might call an epic blog post, an uber post, a great big massive post, I guess you could say, called Microsoft Teams Education, How to Manage It Like a Pro. If you want to be able to find that real quick, by the way, you can go to ditchthattextbook.com/Microsoft-Teams. I'm going to put it in the chat. ditchthattextbook.com/Microsoft-Teams. It's teeny tiny right up here at the top of your screen. But I wanted to mention that because this is where I've pulled together all of the best stuff that I've found and that I've noticed and that I've tried when it comes to Teams. And so you can see in this table of contents that we have ways to use Teams video meetings with students, Teams channels, tabs, and apps, how to use them and which you want to use. We've got things about feedback, assignment upgrades in Microsoft Teams, and then some videos and some infographics. So yeah, definitely go check that out later if you'd like to. That's where I'm going to be pulling a lot of the stuff from this presentation, is from that. So if you want to go check that out later, ditchthattextbook.com/Microsoft-Teams. Okay, so I'm actually going to open up my my Teams app And by the way, one thing that's important to note, I think, when it comes to Teams is that there is a computer app, like a computer program that you can install on your laptop or your desktop computer. But then you can also run the mobile app, and you can also run Teams through the web. So depending on where you're doing your teaming, I don't know if that's a verb that I can use or not. Depending on where you're doing your work in Microsoft Teams, things may look a little bit different based on that. So just so you know, I'm running it off of the laptop app, so like the computer program. Now, when it comes to Teams, you can see that it all starts out, by the way, with the teams that you are involved in. The team is kind of like the great big organizational piece of all of it. So you might have a team for specific classes. You might have a team for your department teachers, or you may have a team for a club or a sport or something like that. That's your great big organizational piece. And then you'll find that within the teams, there are ways to kind of like narrow that down and continue the organization. Jonathan just mentioned in the chat, he said they used to be very close to identical, but since the pandemic, the app has more features. So that's a good thing to note. I'll tell you, whenever I work with Teams, I almost always run it off of my computer, but I also have the app on my phone. And I'll tell you, the app on the mobile app does an awful lot too. So once you get into that, let's click on Mr. Miller's awesome class. What you'll find is that within Teams, the easiest way to kind of organize your content, there's kind of two different main ways, I think, and that's through your channels, which you can see right over here, and your tabs. So the channels, let's start with the channels. A lot of times with the team that you have, let's kind of look at this as if it were a class. So let's say that you have a class. For me, I taught high school Spanish. So let's say it's Spanish 1. And then you have all of those channels that you can set up. Your organization of the channels, that's kind of like one of the things that you want to figure out from the beginning. As far as the channels go, you might think about, like, what do I want to use a specific channel for? So lots of times you have teachers who will do channels for individual units of study. They'll do them for different chapters in your book. If you kind of ask yourself, how do I break my class up? How do I break my class content up? That's probably the way that you might want to do your channels. And again, as we continue to talk about this, if you're a big Teams user and you can tell us a little bit about your organization structure, like how you organize things, please drop that in the chat. I'll continue to shout you guys out. So within the channels, you could see, like I said, units, chapters, topics. There's a variety of things that you can do within those. If you have individual projects, sometimes it's nice to have channels for those projects. And so if you click on one channel, you'll notice that one of them is called General, and you'll find that you have a general channel for every one of your teams. That's kind of like your home base for the team. So if you want to make announcements to everybody, if you want to put something in there where everybody's going to be able to see it, the general channel is where you want to go. But then within each of these other channels, you're able to add specific, announcements and post resources and that kind of thing within those specific unit channels or chapter channels or whatever. Becca just threw into the chat. She said, until they bring in the breakout rooms, I use channels for group work. That's a good one. I like that. You can add collaborative documents and shared whiteboards. Yeah, that's a fantastic idea. So instead of just using it for units or chapters or projects or whatever, if you create a channel for a group of students and file that one away for later, that's good. And so then then they're able to work within that channel. And then they're the only ones that end up seeing that channel. They're the only ones that are in it. And Marilyn says apparently breakout rooms are coming. We'll see what that looks like whenever it gets here, right? Okay. Becca says we played rock, paper, scissors for probability and they used cameras. That's cool. That's cool. I like that idea. Okay. So let's click on one of these channels and let's see what you can do inside of it. So once you get into a channel, I don't have this one very populated, but once you click on a channel, there's a few things that you can do over here. You know, this is all the content within the channel. Of course, you can add a post to a channel. So I could just say hello and add that, and then that's right there. And of course, the nice thing about it is that students are able to reply to it if they need to. And then one thing that you'll notice within the channel is that we have these tabs up at the top of it. Now, your channels will come pre-populated with some of the tabs. So you've got posts. That's where, you know, I just posted something. And of course, you can see from the little icon menu down here that you can add a lot of things to your post. You can format text. You can add attachments. You can add emojis and animated GIFs and little stickers. You can do videos from stream, so on and so forth. You can create a poll and do a checklist. All of these things are things that you can add into your posts. So as you think about that, remember, when it all comes down to your organization structure, if you want to do channels for different chapters, then you might want to add videos from stream that are like little tutorial videos that help students out. If you go within a chapter or a unit, you could even throw a poll in there to ask students, hey, if you had the choice of this, this, or this when we do this chapter, what do you think? And you can gather all of that in that one spot. See, that's one of the things that I think I really like the most about Teams is there's so much organization. You're able to go from the big picture of the team, and then you're able to break it down into the channel. And then within the channel, you're able to break it out into a variety of other things. So you can make posts within a channel. Another thing you can do is add files. So this is kind of cool. This files tab that we have up here, notice that this is the files tab for the biomes channel. Let me say that again. This is the files tab for the biomes channel. And so if you have specific files that you want your students to be able to access for that particular channel, this is the place to drop it. You'll notice that if I click on another channel, like this current projects one, it has its own files tab, which has, you know, a little document inside of it right here. And then you'll also notice that the general also has a files tab. So if you want to post files just for the class in general, say like your classroom rules or your classroom management plan, or you know, something that they need to have access to all the time, this is probably the place to do it. If you want to post a study guide to a specific unit, or if you want to, you know, post kind of like a list of vocabulary words or something like that, putting it within the channel in the files is what you want to do. Now, let's talk for just a second about these tabs. So we've talked about the channels and how the channels are kind of the way, they're like the first level down of how to organize. Now, when it comes to the tabs up here, here's something that you may notice. I'm going to click on General so you can see this a little bit easier. You have kind of limited space when it comes to these tabs. And of course, there's lots of things that you can add to it. You can post files. Class notebook. Oh my goodness. This is something that, this one right here is going to take like a whole different presentation because there's so much that you can do with this. This is kind of like a OneNote notebook specifically for your class where you can post things for everybody to see. We can post things for individual students to see. You have like a collaborative space where everybody can work. Class notebook gets its own presentation. But I just wanted to throw this in here because whenever you use it in education, class notebook is one of the tabs that shows up. So here's what I wanted to tell you about tabs. This is kind of an important thing to note. You have to be careful about tab hoarding. Can you imagine what I'm talking about when it comes to tab hoarding? And I think especially in the general channel, it's important to remember that. See, when I first started working in Teams, I saw the tabs and I thought, oh, this is cool. Oh, I could add a tab for this. I could add a tab for this. It was really easy for me to think about what I could put into those tabs. And then I started to realize that there were lots of them that started showing up. Celia just asked, when am I going to present on Class Notebook? That's a good question. I'm going to present on OneNote coming up sometime soon. Oh goodness. Okay, there's several of you talking about that. And then Jonathan saying OneNote could take multiple sessions. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely it could. Here, you know what? Let's find out real quick. I'll go real quick over to q.org/Microsoft. Since you asked, you know, Laura wants to know more about class notebooks too. Oh my goodness. See, now I'm going, well, couldn't we just spend the rest of this time talking about class notebooks? But I did talk about how this presentation was like Microsoft Teams an overview. So I'm going to sort by my name real quick because I think I've got something coming up. Aha! Look at that. July 21st, 11 a.m. Pacific, which is 2 p.m. Eastern. OneNote and Class Notebook, collaborative, creative, colorful. Boom. There you go. Okay, so if you want to know more about that, come back on July 21st, which happens to be next Tuesday, and we'll talk about it. How about that? And then Marilyn mentioned assignments too. Guess what? We're going to talk about assignments a bunch in this session right here. So there you go. Jonathan's like, mark your calendars. Yes, absolutely. So, okay, let's go back in here real quick because I was talking about tab hoarding, right? You don't want to be a tab hoarder. Someone explained this to me. I thought this was great, that your tabs are supposed to be kind of like the right now section. Think about your tabs for your students. This is like the desk space that students have. Imagine students sit down in one of those little regular old student desks. You know, it's got the chair and it's got the table attached to it and everything. And the tables are kind of small, you know, especially if you put a laptop or something like that on it, or a Surface tablet or whatever. You don't have a whole lot of space. So the stuff that you have on your desk, you've got to be careful about what you put on there. You can't just throw everything onto it. And I think that the tabs are very much like that. So I know a lot of teachers will change the tabs on a regular basis. So when it comes to tabs, for instance, we're in our biomes right here. We might decide that this particular one right here, this is a Flipgrid topic that you can add to a tab. You might go, you know what? We don't need this one anymore. Oh, good, Becca answered your question. Awesome. We might not need this one anymore, so I'm going to take it out. Or we just got done with what we needed to do in that tab today, so tomorrow we're not going to need it. I'm taking it out. So they'll use it kind of like the right now space. So let's say, for instance, that today we were recording videos on this Flipgrid topic. And so we recorded videos, we watched each other's videos, we replied to each other's videos, we did all the things that you do in Flipgrid. And then tomorrow we go, you know what? Remove. And we're going to get rid of that tab. And then today, let's add a new tab for what we're going to be doing today. And so let's say, for instance, that we're going to do a PowerPoint presentation. Now, it's easiest if you have a PowerPoint presentation already loaded in your files. This is kind of the workflow that you need to know whenever you're going to add one of these tabs. So, for instance, to make this easy, I remember in current projects, if I click on files, remember we have a document. So let's say we want everybody to work in the same document. What we're going to do is we're going to click add and we're going to go find Word. And we notice inside of this channel, we have this document. So we're going to click it right there. We're going to hit save. Notice this little checkbox before it disappeared, and it already disappeared. It said add a post to your channel. So you can leave that checkbox checked and it will add a post to your channel, almost like an announcement saying, hey, guess what? We just added this file. Or you can uncheck that so the post doesn't show up. And so, you know, here's this document right here. And so now everybody's able to click on that one. Now, notice that this says Word. And that's not exactly what we want it to say. We want to, let's say we want to call this, so we're going to hit rename. Instead of just calling it Word, let's call it Collab Space. So now we know that that's our collaboration space. That's what we're going to use for that day. So by seeing how that tab's set up, now you can kind of see the general way that lots of tabs can be set up. And there's a wide variety of things that you can add here. I have found that a lot of the apps that you find down here are not really made for education, but there's a lot of things that you can use that fit up here very well. Becca says announcements are cool in Notebook, colors, pictures, and big text. Ah, yes. Yes, absolutely. In fact, let's touch on that real quick. You remember how I just said that there was that little checkbox that added things to your posts? So there's what it looks like right there. Added a new tab at the top of the channel. Here's a link in case you want to go see it. So yeah, that's another thing that you can do with that is whenever you add one of those, it can go into your posts. Okay, so you can kind of get an idea now about your channels, and you can get rid of or get an idea of your tabs. Oh my goodness, there's so many familiar faces in this video or in this this video call. I just noticed that my friend James from South Texas just joined the video. Hey James, good to see you. Appreciate you jumping in here. So, oh, Becca was saying announcements and channels. Yeah, and not a notebook. Yeah, you're right. And this is what she was talking about because we can type, this is an announcement, and then in addition to that, see, look, I just clicked that compose box and so now I can take the text and I can make it like a great big heading. You know, I can change the size of it to large. I can change the color of it. So now it kind of stands out like that. I can just add a whole bunch of stuff here. Another thing that you can do here is this, you can click this little thing that says mark as important whenever you're making a post. So if it's something that you want to make sure everybody sees, it adds this little red bar to it. And after a while, once you use Teams for a little while, whenever you see the red bar, you're like, oh, wait a second. And then notice it says important right here too. Oh my goodness. There's so much stuff we can talk about when it comes to this. Jonathan says, change it from a conversation to an announcement. Oh yeah, yep, you're right, you're right. Aha, there it is right there. See, I'm still learning about things every once in a while too. That's why I'm glad that we're all here. We're better together, right? So, super important announcement. We can put that right there. So anyway, yeah, so once that's done, we click that and then now it's put into a post. Okay, so we've talked about channels. Oh, Jonathan's checking out. Cards versus Cubs, August 7th, may have to have a Teams watch party. I'm game. We talked about channels. We talked about tabs. Now let's talk about another important part of Teams that if you're going to use this with students, you're going to want to know more about, and that is assignments. Marilyn was asking about assignments earlier, so now we're going to jump right into that. And so let's click on assignments over here. This is one place where you're able to, you know, click down into your class, and then you're able to see your class assignments. And so, of course, anything that you have assigned is all right here and you can edit. But let's start with the create button. Now, by the way, let me stop before I actually hit create here, and I want to show you something that I have over here on this enormous Microsoft Teams blog post on my website. I wanted to show you that if you go down to the infographics, looky here, you have a 12-step how to use Microsoft Teams to create assignments infographic. And this walks you through the basics. You know, open up assignments, type a title, give instructions, decide how many points. Like, it walks you through all of the different stuff, all the way through to when you return, you know, students have turned things in and you return it back to them. If this is helpful to you, remember, ditchthattextbook.com/Microsoft-Teams. So, you know, those are the basics right there. So with that said, let's create an assignment real quick. So we're going to do a basic assignment, not a quiz. A couple of things to think about when it comes to assignments. Number one, you want a title. And of course you want a descriptive title that describes what, you know, the kind of work that you're doing. Now here's an idea that I learned from working within another assignment management platform that's out there on the market that is not Microsoft Teams. I learned from working within that it is a best practice when you use assignments like this to put an assignment number at the beginning of your title. So for instance, on this one, if this was the very first assignment, I'm going to say 001, put a little colon right there. Introduce yourself, exclamation point. Now here's the reason that you want to put this number out here. And it's like kind of unintuitive to think that you want to add a number to your assignments, but if you start doing it from the very, 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 very beginning, it's a good idea. Because what if you have a student who hasn't completed an assignment? Because that happens sometimes, right? What if you have a student who hasn't completed an assignment and you go, okay, I'm missing some work from you. I need you to go back and do that one assignment. You remember the one assignment when we used the vocabulary words and we made a picture out of it, and like you find yourself trying to describe it, or you try to give them the name of the assignment. That's not succinct enough. If you give it a number, it's as simple as, hey, I need assignments 1, 14, and 22 from you. Boom, boom, boom. Done. Write them on a sticky note, send them in a message through Teams, whatever. So if you have those numbers on there, and if you start it from the beginning, from the very beginning of the year, that's huge. Marilyn says naming conventions really helps with organization. I found that out from the other management system as well. Yeah, and you know, when she says naming conventions, that's the term that I use for it too, actually. Naming conventions, this is like trying to figure out if there is a little something extra that you put into the title so that you know what category it is or what type of assignment it is or something. So for instance, I might even put like in parentheses over here and put PPT because I know I'm going to use PowerPoint in it. I don't know if it makes sense for you to put, you know, that kind of label in it, but if you put that little label at the end of it, then the title becomes even more descriptive. So, you know, if you think about it, whenever you're creating an assignment within Teams, the title is prime real estate. Because whenever the students pull it up in their assignment, the title is, you know, like the first thing that you jump right up there and see. So if you can use that prime real estate to get the most out of it that you can, that's great. So for instance, if this is like, you know, an essay, you know, you can put that in parentheses. Or let's say you're in an elementary class and you teach all of the different subjects all integrated. And so if this is a social studies activity, maybe we put an SS there. Now, of course, what you could do if you're teaching an elementary class and you have all of your different subjects is you could have a different channel for each of those subjects. See, this is the beauty, I think, of Teams, is that you have all of these different routes that you can go for your organization, how you organize your content. And once you figure out what works for you, boom, you're in good shape. And as you're trying to figure it out, there's no harm in, let's go try how to organize some of this stuff. Let's see if it works. Ask your students if it works. And then if it doesn't work, just go try something else, or go change and try something else. Okay, so moving on. Of course, you've got instructions. It's a good idea to type some instructions. especially during remote learning. I will say that for me, doing assignments through a learning management system, I have fallen prey to not typing instructions in. And having those detailed instructions in there is useful for a couple things. Number one, absent students. Number two, if a student leaves class and doesn't get done. But also number three, if you have students who start working on an activity and they get a little ways through it, this is especially in face-to-face class. They get a little ways through it. And if you're face-to-face and you don't have good instructions in there, who do they go ask questions to about the rest of that assignment? They come and ask you, the teacher, right? If you have good detailed instructions in there from the beginning, they don't have to come ask you. Not that you don't want to talk to them, you know, but if you have those good detailed instructions in there, then they can go just refer right back to that. It keeps them on topic. It keeps you on task. Keeps them on task. It keeps you on task. So here are some very detailed instructions. Smiley face. Now, of course, you can also add resources too. When it comes to adding resources, here's something that's really important. If you want to create a template, let's say something that you want students to go work on, and you want to make a copy for every single student so that they can go work within that template, then what's really nice is to, let's say, let me go find one. How about this one? Hexagonal thinking. This is a graphic organizer that I made in PowerPoint. And it's kind of a neat one because within this PowerPoint, students have these little tiles that they can drag around on the screen. Now, if I want to give that to them, I probably want to give them their own copy of it. And if each student has their own copy of it, then they're able to work on it and then turn each of those copies in, right? So I'm going to click on that. So I just clicked on that one file and then I'm going to hit attach. And notice, there it is right there. There's hexagonal thinking. Now, if you come over to the three dots, this little selection that I'm going to show you right here could become your best friend if you don't use it already. You click on the little three dots. Students edit their own copy. That's like the digital photocopier. So you're going to make a copy of that PowerPoint. Well, you're not going to. Teams is going to do it for you. Make your own copy of each one of, or for each one of your students. Each one gets their own copy. Then they open it up, they do their work on it, and then they turn it into you. So what's neat about that is for you as a teacher, you can set up a template that they can work on. And then you fire it off to the students, and then they're able to work on it, and then they turn it in. And all you have to do is just do the work once. Dana says, if I had a nickel for every time I told a student during a remote instruction to read the directions, I'd be retired right now. Yep, I hear you. Totally hear you there. Okay, so let's continue through this assignment because we've got lots of other moving pieces in this. Of course, you can assign the number of points that you want. The rubric. Now, depending on the activity you're doing, if it's something little and short and sweet, you might not need a rubric, of course. But if you want to make your own rubric, I tell you what, this rubric tool within Teams is pretty powerful. So I'm going to show you a new rubric real quick. You can give it a title like Introduce Yourself. This is the activity where we introduce ourselves. Again, detailed descriptions are good. That is not a very detailed description. But then from there, you can go down and edit the grading criteria. And of course, you know, a lot of times we see excellent, good, fair, poor, something like that. What's neat is that you can add additional columns. So if just 4 criteria aren't enough, you can add more. And so then within each one, then you're able to add a description. So, and then of course we can add multiple of these. So for this one, let's say, you know, this is, we want to describe what excellent looks like, good looks like, fair looks like, poor looks like. And then we've got different parts of the rubric, right? So then we can add the different parts of the rubric. We put it all together kind of like a grid like this. Wendy, you are right on with that. And then you hit attach, and then the rubric shows up there. And then there's the rubric right there. Another thing that's nice is that you're able to assign to as many students as you want. The default is to assign it to everybody. Now, this is a neat way to be able to differentiate down to small groups of students. You know, if you want to change the assignment for different groups of students, then all you've got to do is create an assignment and then assign it just to whichever students you want. So in this case, I might assign it to these 2 students. And then I can go duplicate that assignment, assign it to the other 3 students, and then make some small changes to it. And so then that way, the cool thing is that it sends the one assignment to the 2 students, it assigns the other assignment to the other 3 students, and nobody knows that they're getting different assignments. I mean, if they look down into the descriptions and what you're asking them to do, but just, you know, on its face, you can't tell the difference between the 2. And Wendy says, I love it. I can use it repeatedly for similar assignments and it populates the title for me. Awesome. Yes. Yes, absolutely. We can change the due date and the time due. There's even a turn it in feature if you have turn it in turned on. And then do we want to post this to the general channel? We can do that. And then once we're done, we hit assign. And there's our introduce ourself right there. Marilyn just asked, can you delete some of the levels of the rubrics or make a criteria checklist? You can definitely delete the parts of the rubric. Let me see if I can pull that back up real quick. Okay. Okay, so once it's already assigned, it looks like it's too late to be able to do that. But if we create a new one, I'm going to do this real quick just so I can show Marilyn the rubric. So here we go. Check this out. We're going to create a new rubric, and notice that we need to have, it shows, see, look, from here we can delete the different columns if we want to. And then from here we can delete rows. And then in addition, of course, we can add rows and we can add columns. Marilyn, I'm glad you brought this up and brought me back here because I wanted to show you something real quick. When it comes to regular rubrics, one of the things that I've never totally liked about regular rubrics is that we have to go, you know, if we do like it said, excellent, good, fair, and poor. You know what I hate about regular rubrics is that we have to cook up descriptions of what a poor assignment looks like. And we have to cook up descriptions of what a fair assignment looks like. And then good is like, okay. And then there's excellent. What we really want is excellent, right? I mean, that's what we want students to strive for. We don't want to give them a description of what less than what we're asking them to do looks like. Let's not even give them that idea. Let's shoot for the stars, right? Let's shoot for what we really want them to do. This is at the heart of the this is at the heart of an idea called the single point rubric. So I want to show this to you real quick. There's a really great blog post. If you search for single point rubric, there's a great blog post at the Cult of Pedagogy blog. Anybody else a big like fanboy or fangirl on the Cult of Pedagogy blog? Because I am. I'm a Jennifer Gonzalez fanboy. But you get into this and you can see there's a little example right up here. And see what the single point rubric has is it has the criteria. And this is what Marilyn was talking about. She says, that's what I like about criteria charts instead. Yeah, because you can see right down the middle of this rubric, it's just the criteria, right? And then you have a place for areas for improvement and you have evidence of exceeding standards, which is fantastic. I love this because it gives us what we want to shoot for. And then if we don't totally meet up with it, then we add it in the areas for improvement. And if they're doing better than that, we can put it in exceeding standards. So let's go back to Teams for just a second. what if we delete, 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 and we go criteria? And so now we describe what it is that we're looking for. This could be like narrative text. This could be design, and then whatever else we want to, grammar and syntax, I don't know, whatever. And then right here, we put in what we want them to actually do. Descriptive text, eye-catching design, accurate grammar. And then now we have something where we don't have to describe the lesser versions of what it might look like. So you may or may not have realized it, but single point rubric, you may or may not have realized it, but Teams actually supports that idea of the single point rubric. Oh, Marilyn mentioned it also can be co-created with students. That's a fantastic idea. You create that single point rubric with students and you ask them, what do we want to try to achieve in this assignment? What would you say is the model that we ought to follow? What are the criteria for, and whenever you do that together with students, now it's not something that's being imposed on them by the teacher. It's something we're all coming together to do as a group. Good stuff. Okay, let's go back to, I'm going to discard this one, and I'm going to go back to our introduce yourself. No, I'm going to go to a different one because I already have some assignments turned in some of these other ones. When I was learning, Wendy just asked, would this be a good checklist for students before turning in their task? Yes, absolutely. I think so. You know, if they're able to go through that, and I would even say, and this is supported in Teams too, we may get to this in just a little bit. I would even say, have them turn it in. Well, go through the checklist, go through that rubric, have them turn it in, and then you go through the rubric, you leave some feedback, and then you hand it back to the students. This avoids what I've heard a number of people say this, so I don't know who to attribute it to. This avoids the idea of autopsy grading. Autopsy grading means the assignment is totally done, and then we give them the feedback and after it's already over. When the assignment is already over and the students get feedback, they're like, I'm ready to move on to the next thing, sorry. So if we're able to make feedback part of the process before the assignment is over, then all of a sudden they're able to incorporate that feedback into their work and then make improvements. So yeah, I thought that was a good point. Marilyn asked, can you hand it back and they change it and turn it in again? Yes, absolutely. I'm going to try to show that to you here. I know that it's part of the process because I've done it. See, there's the return right there. Let's say, for instance, that, okay, we have some assignments to grade. And so someone has turned it in. One of our students has turned it in. Then once it's turned in, we've got a couple things we can do. I wish I would have set this up better for you guys before. Okay, here we go. Let's just do this. Let me close real fast. These are the graded ones that I've already handed back. But once you get that assignment turned in, when it's in the to grade section, then we're able to take a look at it in a view like this. And so this one was, I actually, to practice with this a little bit, I actually did an assignment with my student or with my own children. And I said, hey, you've got to open up Teams and you've got to do this assignment for me. And I said, what are your top 3 movies? And so they made me a PowerPoint presentation with their top 3 movies. So whenever students turn this in, this is your like quick grading pane over here. I don't mean pain like P-A-I-N, although it can be a pain sometimes. I mean like P-A-N-E. And so from here, you know, here's the file, which I could go open up in the desktop app if I want to. I can, of course, click on the rubric. And so within this rubric, you know, I've filled it all out. Here are the different parts with the descriptors, pictures, and awesomeness was what I put in there. And then what else is nice is that you can add feedback. So right down here, you type in some of your feedback. Now, what's nice to know about the grading process also is that there are a variety of places that you can put feedback. And so, this is a place where you can type private feedback just for the student. But what's also nice is that you can come over here into the student's work. If you want to add something specific to something that they've put, like pointed, targeted feedback on the student's assignment, you can come over here. I can click on this one. I can click on this image and then check this out. If I can find it real fast. This is under review. Add a comment. So let's say that she wrote something. And so within that writing, I highlight that little piece of text and then I hit comment. And so then I leave her a comment specifically to that. Now you'll see that over here in the grading section, I can leave general feedback. It's nice to leave general feedback so that they know in general how they did. But if I want to get down to the nitty-gritty, don't forget that you also have document comments. These are the comments within your PowerPoint or within your Word or within your Excel or whatever. You click on that and then you leave that comment. And of course, then they're able to go in and reply if they want to. And so that's like that nested comment about that particular change. So really, this isn't the only place that you can leave feedback. There are lots of places. So yeah, that's another thing to consider. And then whenever you're done with the grading, then of course you can hit done. And so now we've got all of that there. Now back to Marilyn's question earlier, can you hand it back and they change it and turn it again? That's where, I've already returned this back to them. There is a place, forgive me for not remembering this right off the top of my head. Is this it right here? Assignment allows late turn-ins. Due date, close date. There is a way to do this. Don't assign to students added to this in the future. Marilyn, I wanted to have like a quick answer to you. I swear that you can do this because I'm pretty sure that I've done it before. So I just can't remember this off the top of my head. I hate when that happens. But I'm pretty sure that there's a way that you can do it so that they can turn it back. That's one of the things that I've really liked about Teams is that it really does promote that, kind of back and forth. I'm going to give it to the student. The student's going to give it back to me, back and forth until you get it right. So anyway, that kind of sums things up when it comes to the assignments. And so then, of course, from there, the thing that I didn't mention earlier was that you can, of course, put a grade on it. And then there's that feedback again. These are the, this is the summative feedback that we put at the bottom of that grading section. And then when you turn it back to students. The other thing that's cool too is that we have this button up here that says student view. So we can actually see what it looks like for the students. I don't know if you've ever tried to assign through other learning management systems or if you've tried to assign without knowing exactly what it looks like for the students. It's nice to be able to tell them, hey, when you open this up, click here, this button is going to be in this spot. This is what it's going to look like. You can even put it up on a projector screen or in a video call so that they can see what it looks like. So I really like that they've got that. Okay, so we've covered assignments, we've covered channels, we've covered posts, and we've covered tabs. Wanted to see if there's anything that we haven't touched on that you really wanted to make sure that we did cover. I will mention that up here in the general is where you can find assignments and where you can find grades. That's the only place that assignments and grades live as tabs is just under general. I'll click on the grades as well. And of course, this is a good place to be able to see all of the students, all of the things that you've assigned them. You can see, in this case, you can see the grade has been sent back. You can see that the assignment has been viewed by the student, which is super helpful sometimes. And then you've got your little 3 dots here where you can open up that student work if you want to. How did I add test students? Is that like these right here? This is my this is my Teams account where I was given like a co-teacher and a couple of test students so that I was able to, kind of practice through this. So that's, that's something I was given just to be able to demo Teams. So if that's what you were asking, Marilyn, that's the answer to that question. Okay, very good. Yeah. Laura says you can add a Wakelet to a tab if you have the app enabled. Ooh, that's a good one. Notice, by the way, I'm going to stop my screen sharing for real quick so that you can see my smiling face. And check this out, Laura, ready for this? I'm wearing a Wakelet t-shirt today. How about that? How's that for timing? I'm so glad that you mentioned that. By the way, if you're not familiar with what Wakelet is a neat free tool. I think that it's kind of like Pinterest for the classroom because it lets you make these collections. You can add a whole bunch of stuff to the collections, and it's really, really helpful. So if you click plus here, let's search for, there's Wakelet right there. And you can click on Wakelet. I'm going to add it as one of my apps. And then from there, I'm able to enter. See, I would have to go over to Wakelet and grab the link to a specific Wakelet, and then I could drop it in there, and then you could see what one of those collections looks like. So it makes it pretty easy too. And by the way, Marilyn mentioned Flipgrid too. I did have a Flipgrid one on there. Let me show you how easy it is to add it. If you go over to your Flipgrid account, you can grab the Flip code, which is the code that you give students to join a Flipgrid video response. Or you can grab the URL, either one, you plug it in there and you hit save, and all of a sudden, boom, it's added as a tab. And so whenever students click that tab, they're able to just access that Flipgrid right there. And Stephanie says Kahoot as well. I didn't realize that Kahoot was one of the ones that you could add. There it is right there. See, with Kahoot, the way that Kahoot works, whenever you add that, if you want to be able to have students join a Kahoot game really quickly. I was kind of like dragging my feet so that I could just tell you what it said right here. You want to log into your account and then choose the Kahoot game from there, and then you're able to do it. So if there's anything else, how about this? 2 things. Number 1, if you're a Teams user and there's anything else that you would suggest to everybody, drop that into the chat. I would love to shout it out to everybody. Number 2, if you have any questions of anything that wasn't covered, feel free to drop that into the chat as well. I did want to show you real fast that over here, this is my my Teams post that I was talking about earlier. Actually, I've got this one open right here. 5 tips for effective Microsoft Teams announcements. Now, this is a infographic that I created based off of a post from Jenna Lee. I don't know if you've heard of Jenna Lee before. It's Jenny Long and Sully Clark. They've been blogging about Microsoft for a while and sharing things on YouTube videos and everything. They're fantastic. You can find their stuff, by the way, by going to the jennaleeshow.com. I just put that into the chat. That's where you can find their stuff. But they said, hey, whenever you're making announcements, so, that's like right here. If I click and I start to create a post down here, hit the format button, notice that's a conversation. Let's switch it to an announcement, which gives you the great big bold headline. These are some things that they suggest that I thought was really good. One is you can post an announcement to multiple channels. So if you have like 3 channels that are multiple groups of students and you want to send it out to all of them, remember how we said you could do this with small groups? Just use that post to multiple channels button, which is right here. And then I can choose multiple channels that I put that in. That's kind of a pro tip. Mark it as an announcement. It gives it a red exclamation point and a red line. We were talking about that earlier. You can save announcements. and so that you can access them later. So if there's one thing that you share in announcements that you think you might want to use again, you can save it. You can copy a link to an announcement and share it to Outlook or to whatever your email is. So if you want to get someone over to your announcement quickly and easily, you can copy the link to it. And then they also suggest inserting a poll or a quiz to engage students. I thought those were all really good suggestions. So that's all for announcements. Oh, we got some stuff coming in the chat. We got some good stuff. Jonathan's back. He says, best thing about Teams meetings is that you can continue to have access to the chat even if you aren't there. He says, thanks for sharing. Have a great evening. I thought he was leaving earlier, but I guess he hung around. Yeah. So if you look up here on my screen and you see I click on the chat, here's a good example. You know, this is the chat for our video call that we're on right now. And so see, that chat is going to hang around. These are all of the these are all of the messages that you all have put in, and you're able to refer back to it through the chat. And here are some of those other ones. Celia says, if you record your Teams meeting, the stream video will go in your channel. Yes, that's fantastic. So whenever you get done recording, and what's also cool too is that you can choose which channel you want that recording to go in. So if you're going to do a Teams meeting and you want to do a recording of it, if we're doing the Teams meeting about biomes, of course we want to do that recording in the biomes channel. We would just hit meet up here, or we could schedule the meeting for later, and then you would record it, and then whenever it's done, it gets dropped right into that channel. Pretty cool stuff. Becca says, come back to the main chat. Use this a lot. Yeah, I could totally get that. R. Sullivan, I think I missed the name on that one, says going through the Kahoot website, you can also connect your Kahoot assignments directly to your Teams assignments. Yeah, that's cool. So then if a Kahoot assignment, especially like a challenge, because Kahoot challenges aren't based on like everybody being together, they're asynchronous. And so you can connect that to a Teams assignment. So how the student does in that Kahoot challenge can go right into their Teams assignment, and you can put a grade on it and everything, which is cool. Becca says now they're making it so that you can really end the meeting so kids can't come back. Does the chat disappear too? That is a good question. I don't know the answer to that question. We'll have to go figure that one out on our own. Okay, so we've gotten, thank you all for those of you that added some extra, some extra tips and stuff into the chat. So. Oh, Lorna just says it didn't when I used it. So I guess that means if the video call, like the video meeting ends and you really end, Lorna's saying the chat didn't disappear when she used it. And then Wendy says, in order for kids not to be able to return to the chat, will the teacher need to be the last one to log out? I think that's the case. Yes, I'm pretty sure. I didn't prepare for that particular part, but I think that that's the case. Marilyn says our district disabled the chat for the summer. That's probably a good idea. Okay. I hate to do this, but we are up against our time, and I want to be respectful of everybody's time. We have we've covered a lot when it comes to Teams and how you can use it with your classroom. We touched on the Teams, the channels, the tabs, the assignments, a whole bunch of stuff. And again, if you want to go back to my blog post, ditchthattextbook.com/Microsoft-Teams, that's where I'm always throwing all of the good stuff that I'm learning and sharing about Microsoft Teams. So feel free to go back and do that. Okay, that wraps it up, I think. So thank you all so much for being part of this recording. Thank you for the kind comments in the chat. I really appreciate it. It's been great being able to interact with you. Would love to get to see any of you on a future Global EdTech Academy webinar. So take care, be safe. Hopefully I'll get to see you on another webinar. See ya.